All right, Mr. Jonathan.
Okay. Yep, that'll work. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to welcome you to the second session of our five-part series for our webinar called Grow Your Exports, featuring our good friend, William Burgess. My name is Jonathan Bricker, and I'm the chair of the Arkansas District Export Council. In my primary role, I work for Regions Bank, located in Bentonville, Arkansas. My banking career started off as international business development, and now I'm a commercial lender with a focus on helping commercial and industrial businesses located in Arkansas. I want to begin by thanking our sponsors, the Arkansas Economic Development Commission and Arkansas Manufacturing Solutions. Without their support that they provide throughout the entire year, we would not be able to put these webinars on free of charge like we do. So thank you to the AEDC and AMS for your sponsorship. I really appreciate you all joining us today. For those of you that aren't quite sure who the deck is or what we do, allow me to do a quick introduction. We're a private, nonprofit organization that brings together experienced international business people with potential exporters. Each member of the deck has been appointed by the U.S. Secretary of Commerce for our real world expertise in international trade. We've got a bunch of experience throughout the council in many different sectors. But that doesn't mean that we have every answer to every question. But what we can do is introduce you to someone that does have that answer. My hope for the day is that you walk away from this webinar with a little bit more confidence in your exporting abilities. If you have any questions throughout the webinar and you don't feel comfortable asking it here, I invite you to reach out to us on our website at exportarkansas.org, and we'll have one of our members reach out to you. These classes are designed to generate questions. So as you kind of work through in your mind what it takes to successfully send your product or service overseas. They're meant to be a high level overview of some very important parts of becoming an exporter. So then, as you're ready to take your next step, the deck will be here to kind of help you mitigate any risk possible. Basically, we want to be your strategic partner to help you grow your exports, which helps you grow your bottom line. Before we begin, I'd like to ask everyone to kind of keep themselves on mute and raise your hand or put your question into the chat. That way we don't interrupt the speakers in the slides. So I appreciate your help on that. Now I'll introduce everyone to your educator and moderator today, Mr. Rudy Ortiz. Rudy is the previous chairman of the DEC and the owner of Strategic Business Services, where he helps companies in a wide variety of international business and exporting needs. He helps companies with foreign market entry, and he's an expert leader in 32 different countries. With an MBA in international business, he facilitates various export and supply chain related classes. For this reason, Rudy is our chair of the education committee. Rudy, thanks so much for putting this on, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Jonathan. I really appreciate that. As Jonathan was saying, the mission of the DEC of the District Export Council is to provide guidance so that as you try to expand your role in international business and exporting, you can do so in a safe way, a knowledgeable way to try to mitigate as much of the risk as possible that's involved with any business, but in particular with international business. And so if we can go to William's slide, would really appreciate that. Okay. Um, anyway, in any case, I will introduce William without the slide. So William is not only one of the most experienced exporters within the Arkansas District Export Council, he's also the former chair of the District Export Council. In addition to that, he and his company were nominated and chosen as Exporter of the Year in 2016. SBA Region 6 Exporter of the Year, and really, right out of the ballpark, recipient of the President's E Awards for Exports, which is a very big deal. Uh, William has and his company have exported to over 30 countries. And he also has a lot of experience with what's called the Export Administration Regulations, which regulate the exporting of certain goods, software and technology, and products like that, and also ITAR, the International uh, um, Traffic in Arms regulations, which of course control the exporting of weapon systems and arms and things like that. So that's really important knowledge that he has as a consequence of his own products that his company exports. So with that, William, we will turn it over to you to give today's presentation.
Thank you, Rudy. Appreciate it. Next time you need to get missiles into North Korea, I'm not your guy. So, all right. Well, welcome everyone. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining the Export Council webinar today. We're going to spend the next 30 minutes or so talking about how to build your global infrastructure. And hopefully by the time we're done with that, you'll feel a lot more comfortable. Get my slides to advance here. There we go. Um, you know, exporting can seem complicated, but I assure you that it's not. We're just going to learn how to take it one country at a time. We want to give you that confidence and some knowledge about exporting that, we think is essential as part of this bigger series. That's really what we want to do. We want to get you comfortable with the concepts of exporting so that when you go out, as Rudy said, we can reduce your risk as you go out and make your first export. So hopefully following this session, we want you to grow your business, create value, not just for yourself, but for your customers throughout the world. And we want you to have a great plan. By the time you finish this series of webinars, you should be able to put together a rough sales and marketing plan based on exporting that you can then take to leadership at your company or your group and start exporting. There's a lot of different ways to organize for exporting. I'm going to share throughout today kind of the way we do things as kind of a real world example. A lot of larger companies may even have multiple ways of organizing their exports. We're on the smaller side. So we organize our exports by territory. Basically, in one country, we only have one distributor that we work with. Cuts down on competition, which sometimes can confuse the customer. So we like to do it by territory. That's not the only way to do it. You can also do it by product line. We actually kind of blend these two a little bit in that our distributors distribute 3 of our product lines, but not the 4th product line. The 4th product line we support globally. We support it ourselves here from the United States. So there is a kind of a hybrid model there. So it just really depends on how you want to treat it. The important thing is that you don't want to treat your export sales the same way your domestic sales. It may be the same product. It may be a slight variation on your product, but you don't want to treat them the same way as your domestic sales. You've got different cost structures, different logistics costs, tariffs, duties. So at a bare minimum, you need a separate price list versus your domestic price list. And you may even need a price list for each and every country that you're exporting to. The important thing is that you understand what your costs are and how to apply those in each country. So I am a strong advocate of separating your domestic and your international sales functions within your business. Now, for you, you may be, 5 people, and that may not be possible. We're about 55 people at the moment, so we do have some separation. We have an international sales manager who handles all of our international sales and helps to manage our international distribution network. So we have about a dozen distributors throughout the globe with the goal of getting to 20 distributors in the next year or two. So one person that is very fluent in international transactions. Um, they might be a little bit more expensive, but I think they'll help you in the long term to avoid unnecessary or unexpected expenses. The last thing you want to do is, have a nice large international sale. You had to bid competitively to get to it, but somehow along the way you might have made a mistake in duties and tariffs, or eco terms or something along those lines. You don't want to make those mistakes. So having an experienced international salesperson helps to avoid those types of costly mistakes. So before you even get started, you really need to have a solid foundation, just like most things in life. Um, we're lucky that our international sales manager has been working internationally for decades now. He's lived in 3 or 4 different countries throughout his life. He's really passionate about not just exporting, but about international cultures. Um, he speaks 3 different languages. This might be a little bit of a rare thing in Arkansas to have a trilingual person, but he gets the job done. Um, but look for that person that is not just good at business, but also has a passion for um, engaging with new cultures or other cultures. Um, someone that is not going to have huge hurdles selling your product. So hiring the right person is certainly an important thing to do. As I mentioned earlier, you want to start to develop an export plan. Hopefully, at the end of this series, you can have a 1 or 2 page export plan and a strategy that everybody can kind of see on paper and they can buy into. If you don't have everybody on the same page, it's just going to create a lot of dysfunction down the road. So get everybody on the same page so that we don't waste our time and energy fighting each other, but instead fight for business overseas. Um, owner commitment or manager commitment is critical. There's going to be expenses with doing exporting, even if you don't travel, even if you don't have separate staff. You're going to have logistical expenses. You might have to pay duties or tariffs if your customer insists upon that. So you really need to have that owner's commitment or that manager commitment to make sure that you don't have to cancel an order at the last second. That's the worst thing in the world for a customer, is to have an order canceled at the last moment. So want to make sure everything's going to flow smoothly all the way through that process. Um, you know, Having a product is sometimes under appreciated. In our case, we make electronic products. We make laser products here in Little Rock, Arkansas. It's a high quality product and it's competitive in the marketplace, but we still had to make some changes in order to sell it internationally. In the European Union, we're required to have what's called a CE mark for electronic products. This means that it kind of meets all the safety requirements that they have over there. They're not the same as the safety requirements that we have here in the United States. We often talk about, or you may have heard of UL. Well, it's a similar mark to the CE mark in Europe, that it means that the product is safe to use. So in order to get the CE mark, we had to make certain changes to our product so that it ran off of the voltages that they use in Europe. 240 volt, 220 volt products, are the norm over there. So we had to adapt and make changes to our products in order to make them work. It was a little bit of a process, but we got the regulatory approvals. We mark every one of our products with a label now that has the CE mark on it. And we have no problem getting our products into the European market. hardly ever have we had a shipment stopped by the European um, Border Patrol, or what we would call the Customs and Border Patrol. Um, on the European side, I can't remember the last time we had a shipment stopped. So it pays to get these things taken care of ahead of time, um, especially if you're making an electronic product. But they also have separate regulations for everything from toys to machinery. It's just important to understand. And if you need help with those, obviously, we have folks here at the U.S. Commercial Export Assistance Center who can help you kind of navigate those waters. They have access to experts in Washington, D.C. They can help you get those CE marks that you need for Europe, or if there's other markets you're chasing, like Mexico, or the CCC mark for China, they can help you navigate those regulatory waters. Lastly, I wish I could say you could flip a switch and instantaneously become a successful exporter. It doesn't work quite that easily. It takes time. Every new country has its own idiosyncrasies, and it's just going to take time to work through it. Our We'll talk about naming distributors in a little bit, but just signing up a new distributor for us, our latest market is Italy. It's taken about 8 months to get an agreement together with an Italian distributor, and hopefully we'll complete that before the end of the year and be off to the races in Italy. But it takes some time. During that time, you're just going to have to be flexible. It's kind of like remodeling a house. They say double the time and double the budget. So be flexible. We do travel to meet our distribution partners. I traveled last summer to Italy to meet with this prospective distributor. I had 2 or 3 prospects. I narrowed it down to a single prospect. Went through kind of a contracting process with them, and ultimately, we're gonna get it done. It took a lot of good communication. It took me being an ambassador and meeting the distributor where they're at. It was frustrating at times. It was an emotional roller coaster, but you just got to work through it. And you got to be culturally sensitive at times too. Um, a lot of cultures, especially the Asian cultures, you know, they say yes doesn't necessarily mean yes. You've got to make sure that you have a good understanding of the culture that you're dealing with.
And William, one of the things that you said a little bit earlier was that not to necessarily use the people that you're using for sales domestically to be the same people who are doing it internationally. For many of these reasons that we see here, it requires hopefully an understanding of international cultures. They may have to travel.
Yeah.
They have to be a really good communicator and be emotionally stable. I mean, you
Mhm.
definitely would not want to have somebody that, for whatever reason, does not like dealing with quote unquote foreigners, right? I mean, that would be a real disaster. And so, consequently, choosing the right team for the
Mhm.
international side is going to be really important.
Right. And it took us about, I would say, 20 years before we got to the point where we had just a completely independent, international salesperson. So it's not something some companies can set up a new person um, immediately to just do international, but it needs to be a goal to get off to having somebody completely focused on international sales. And then obviously, as you grow, you can focus on regions, maybe Europe, another one for Asia. For us, it would be, the next step is exactly that: a salesperson for Europe, a salesperson for Asia, and then another one for the rest of the world. So that's kind of our next step in the international export journey. So Part of organizing your sales team, um, you've got both internal and external resources. Um, in our case, it takes more than a salesperson. You got to have somebody who can walk through the administrative process of shipping those products, of billing internationally or extending credit or accepting prepayment. So, everybody kind of needs to be on board internally to make sure that things go smoothly. On the external side, certain products, you got to engage your federal resources. In our case, we make laser products. Some of them have military applications. So, we had to marshal our federal resources. We had to register with the Department of State, Bureau of Industry and Security, and also get our ITAR registration as well. This way we're exporting legally. So depending on what you're exporting, you may or may not need an export license. Most things do not need an export license, but you will certainly have to go through the ACE system for exporting. I think it's over $2,500 in value. You need to register your shipments. Sometimes this is built into the UPS or FedEx system. Other times, you may need to access the portal and process that separately, but it's not overly complicated. Once you know what it is that you're exporting, there are ways to determine how many federal hoops you're going to have to jump through. But most of the time, 99% of the time, for Arkansas exporters, there's very minimal federal hurdles to jump through.
Yeah, and of course, the District Export Council is part of that external team that you can rely on.
Absolutely. Um, I was going to put them under the state and local resources. Certainly your export council, there's about 30 members. We've got a wide variety of experience, including representatives from several logistics companies, brokers, bankers, lawyers. All of those folks are generally members of the Export Council. And we do, as part of the Export Council, we volunteer our time to mentor companies that are learning to export or new to exporting. So reach out to us with questions, and we will get you to the right person who can answer a couple of questions for you. If you need more than just a few questions, certainly we do have consultants that are part of the Export Council, and certainly if you get into needing an export plan made or something like that, those would be the folks to really help you out. So now that we've talked about organizing internal and external resources, let's talk about methods for exporting. As I shared earlier, our method is number two here, or I'm sorry, number three. We export through our intermediaries, through our international distributors. We deal with them on a day-to-day basis. They are boots on the ground in their country, interfacing with the customers that we're looking for. Our distributors handle the import, export, all the collections, those types of things, and then they pay us directly. That's not the only way to go. In countries where we do not have an international distributor, we export directly. We're really lucky in the United States that English is the language of science and the language of business. And a lot of times those that are looking for our products already speak English, regardless of the country that they're in. So we can export directly. If they don't speak English, there's some great translation tools out there that we leverage on a daily basis to, we still sell to people who can't say a word in English. It's not impossible. You just have to take care with your translations and make sure that everything is well understood. But there's lots of great tools for that. So for instance, if we had an export to Brazil, exporting directly would be our option. And, it's not impossible to do. As Rudy mentioned, we export to between 30 and 40 countries every year. It's a lot to keep up with, but it's not impossible. So it helps to have a distributor in country to support those sales. But again, items 3 and 4 are not the only ways to export. You can be an exporter and never send a package outside of the United States. There are people, well, the one that came across my desk this morning, it's a company in Minnesota that is turning around, and they're going to export to UAE in the Emirates. So you don't, it's still an export, in that the product ultimately ends up at a customer outside of the United States. But in this case, the domestic company is going to handle all of the export details, all of the customs duties, logistics, all of that is handled by a company inside the United States. And there are a lot of these companies out there that all they do is, basically fill orders for international companies by shopping domestically, receiving the goods, and then shipping them back out to those international companies that are doing the shopping. It happens a lot. There are also, what we call manufacturers reps who will also represent you in a certain territory and facilitate sales as well. So if you want to learn more about this, I would spend a little time reviewing the basic guide to exporting that's provided as part of this webinar series. Chapter 2 is on developing an export strategy. So indirect exporting through an intermediary, depending on the Ecoterms that you select, that intermediary may assume responsibility for everything from the shipping cost to the liability of losing a shipment, those types of things. So those are things you're going to want to negotiate with your export management company. They should have all the expertise to move the product back and forth to make sure that your risk is minimized. And for some people, minimize what your competitors can learn about you and your business opportunities. There are some disadvantages to using an export management company. They're going to end up being closer to the customer than you are. That minimal buyer contact, depending on where you are in your business cycle, may be a good thing. It may be a bad thing. If you're a startup and you're distant from your ultimate buyer, you're losing a lot of very good feedback. So you want to consider those things. Also, if the outside company is, doing marketing and sales for you, they might not get the right message out there. So, you really need to weigh the advantages and disadvantages of working through an indirect channel. Direct selling has its advantages and disadvantages as well. I can tell you one of the disadvantages of selling directly, if you try to put boots on the ground in a foreign country, is that it's very, very expensive to do that. It's a lot of management time, a lot of financial resources to get the sales that you desire. It may take a year to 2 to get to the point where that person, is self-funding, I guess is a good way to say it. But some of the advantages are, that you're there. You've got boots on the ground. You have that close relationship with those overseas buyers, and you're in complete control. So you can maximize profits and long-term growth that way. The discounts that you would have to give, or the incentives that you would have to give to a export management company, you can reinvest those right into a direct employee. So there's definitely some trade-offs there. There's more than one way to get to market, though. Um, you need to look for partners, and we've talked a lot about distributors here, but there's more than distributors. I talked about management reps or sales representative companies. Haven't talked much about retailers or end users, but there's really a trend right now where even bigger companies are skipping the distribution channel altogether, even skipping retailers and going straight to the end user. I think we can all think of one or two ways that this has happened, but you can buy, e-commerce. It seems like you can buy straight from some of the largest companies these days. So you need to identify the channel that's going to work for you. Are you going to sell through a sales representative, through a distributor, through a retailer, or through an end user? And it might be a combination of all of the above.
And William, one of the things that I think drives the decision whether to use a sales rep or a distributor or a retailer or go all the way to the end user is your margins.
Mhm.
Just to take an example, if your gross profit margin is 16%, obviously there isn't any money there to spend on, distributors and retailers and all of that. You would have to go to the end user route just because you just can't afford to give up any margin. On the other hand, if you had 400% gross profit margins, yeah, I mean, I'm just being absurd there, but yeah, if you had very substantial gross profit margins, then of course you would have the ability, though you might not want to do that, you would have the ability to use a distributor, which
Mhm.
normally takes about a 40% cut in many cases, retailers, which can usually take 100% cut, and so depending on what kind of margins you have on your product or service is going to impact significantly the decision about which way you need to go.
Absolutely. And just to add to that, as you go further to the right on this chart, the actual sale price goes up, up, and up. So yeah, you can capture a little bit more margin perhaps from the end user than you could from, say, a sales representative. All right. In choosing that partner, I know it's always easy to choose the first guy that walks in the door. You know, don't partner with the first company that comes in the door. Just like anything else, shop around, do your due diligence, be patient, be thorough. Um, the U.S. when choosing an international partner, the U.S. Commercial Service has several very inexpensive products where you can investigate your potential partner. They will send people from the embassy out to make sure that your potential partner is as good as they appear. They might be operating out of a garage. You don't know. Sometimes with nice fancy websites, we make a lot of assumptions, but you do want to make sure that they've actually got employees in the facility. So be patient. Use some of those federal tools that are available to you when choosing your partner. If you have any questions about that, consult Chapter 5, Methods and Channels, on that basic guide to exporting. A lot of good stuff, even some testimonials in that chapter. So in choosing a partner, as I mentioned, we, I traveled to Italy last summer to, um, you know, get in front of this potential distributor. We first met them through an international trade show in Munich, Germany. We kind of developed a relationship from there. So often we will, when doing an international or even a domestic trade show, we'll put a sign out that says, seeking distributors in Malaysia, for instance. But you got to put the word out one way or another, put out the word that you're looking for uh, potential partners. And many times, they will respond to that. Additionally, we get people that just walk up and, they say, "Hey, are you looking for distribution in Taiwan. And we can have a conversation about that. We may not be looking for Taiwan at the moment, but not every partnership is forever, right? So you may have an ability there to kind of build a list of potential distributors and have that available when the time might be right. We do spend some time looking at our competitors and looking at their distribution networks. We want to avoid overlap wherever possible. We really don't want a distributor promoting our products as well as one of our competitor products. It just makes for a little bit of a sticky situation. We get a lot of inquiries, not just from trade shows, but from inbound email as well. That might be a way to find a partner, is to put it out there on your website. The American Chambers of Commerce, probably not really well known in the United States, but there are Chamber of Commerce in pretty much every country in the world that claim to be American Chambers of Commerce. And their job basically is to connect you with those international customers and international distributors. So do a little research, see if there is an American Chamber of Commerce in any country that you target, and you may be able to utilize them. I've mentioned the U.S. Commercial Service assistance quite a lot today, but it's because I've participated in their trade missions in Japan, Malaysia, South Korea, to name a few places. They have a service called Gold Key, which is very affordable, where they will set up meetings for you in country as part of these trade missions. And I highly recommend this service. You can't get the number of hours that they put into these things. I think they're a couple $1,000s for a Gold Key, but I guarantee you they put 40, 60 hours into setting up all these meetings for you. So you just can't hire anybody for 40 to 60 hours for a couple $1,000s these days. So
Yeah.
it's a great.
William, we're down to about 2 minutes
Okay.
before we go to Q&A and then to Richard. So,
Perfect.
yep.
Got it. I'll skip a slide or two then. Make sure those partners, when you find them, they share your core values. We look for young, eager distribution companies. So that's what we're looking for. Definitely investigate history background. If you need to investigate references, do that as well. Wanted to spend just a minute on negotiating partner agreements. These are very important. You definitely want to make sure that you have an agreement in place that defines the business relationship. You want to make sure that they understand that you have certain laws that you must abide by. And in the cases of things like, robbery in certain countries, U.S. companies aren't allowed to be associated with any bribes, especially of public officials. So they need to understand that you've got requirements, and everybody needs to know what's expected of them. One really important thing is to have an escape clause for non-performance. If they can't meet your minimum business requirements as far as revenue levels, then you're kind of wasting your time. So you need a way out, and a lot of times you don't want to be stuck in a perpetual cycle where you have to spend a lot of money to get out of a distribution agreement. So
Yeah,
get that stuff taken care of ahead of time.
yeah, and in some countries, they make it really, really difficult to get out of those agreements. So do your due diligence.
Right. I've ever yet to pay a lawyer on an international issue that wasn't worth 10 times what we paid them. So really advise you, there are plenty of local, domestic lawyers that have expertise in foreign law. You just have to search them out. Well, a lot of next steps here. Establish a budget, consider, what your distribution scenario is going to be like. Make sure that you take into account what does service look like. If you have a warranty claim or a non-warranty situation where you need to do a return, make sure that everybody understands what that process is going to be. And make sure you have enough resources internally, not just to service the sale, but to service, the warranty claims that inevitably come, and how you're going to handle the expensive logistics as part of exporting. With that, I think I'll turn it back over to Rudy and we can do Q&A.
Yeah, thanks much. Miss Heidi, do we have any questions at this point?
No, I have not seen any in the chat. So,
Well, now's the time. If you have a question, raise your hand or whatever, and we'll answer your questions. And as Jonathan said earlier, if for whatever reason you don't want to do that right now, just reach out to us. We'll have our contact information at the very end, and you can contact whoever you think is the appropriate person to answer the question. William, thank you so much for taking time to give us your experience in having done this for so many years, and your wisdom having gained from good things and bad things that have happened over the years, right?
Right.
And so we're here to try to prevent any bad things from happening. Do your due diligence. Do not rush into anything. It's just critically important that you take your time. And with that, I think we're going to go ahead and switch over to Richard. But in the meantime, if you do have questions, put them in the chat, and we'll try to cover them before we leave. Richard,
Thank you, Rudy. Can you hear me?
I can.
All right, everything's working on my end. Hallelujah. Are we going to have any of the slides to share on what we do, or you just want me to just kind of verbally go over what we do?
I was assuming that you were going to share your slides.
I can share it if you will let me figure out. Let me share my screen. Give me just a second. And I have a very short time to share here. Let's see. I think this is it. Let me know when you can see it.
That's
Got
it. Got it.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for being on the webinar. I appreciate the opportunity to give just 5 minutes here. And let me just explain. The whole point of me coming on for this 5 minutes is not to tell you everything that we do. It's to just basically build a relationship, introduce what we do, who we are as a federal agency, so that I'm a resource and you've got my contact information, which Rudy and Heidi will share, because what we do is amazing, and the number of services that we can provide is phenomenal. So just to kind of help you understand kind of in context how we fit into the overall federal scheme, the U.S. Department of Commerce is sort of the main federal agency. And under U.S. Department of Commerce, you've got USDA, you've got a whole bunch of agencies, but the International Trade Administration is the agency that I work for. And under the International Trade Administration, which again is a federal agency, we have 3 different divisions within U.S. International Trade Administration. I work for the U.S. Commercial Service. So we are the field offices in about 100 countries across the globe. And we have our foreign associates in the U.S. embassies and consulates, and then our offices here throughout the U.S. So there's a quick snapshot. This really is kind of the main slide I want to spend some time on with you all. Because we are the U.S. government, we are able to do things government to other foreign governments on behalf of some of our clients that the private sector just can't do. And the 4 areas that we really provide services to are on this slide. Now, I also want to preface a couple of things. We work with export-ready companies. So what does that mean? Successful businesses that have a strong domestic market, domestic sales, and hopefully have exported or have a good working knowledge of exporting, and have at least a 51% US content in their product. And when you export a product to certain countries, you have to fill out a form and you have to break down the product by ingredient or by chemical. So that's sort of a benchmark is 51% US content for goods or services. Or if you import some components of your product, as long as at least 51% of it is the US goods in that product. So we provide 4 areas of services. The first one is export counseling. We don't charge for a lot of what we do. Every day I'm on the phone helping businesses figure out, where should they export to? What does that look like? What kind of services would help them? William was wonderful. I think he's like our best unpaid salesperson, not on our payroll. So thank you so much, William, for sharing the successes. And that's good to come from a client. We appreciate your business. The second one is market intelligence. So I loved what William said was have a plan. I think it was make a plan was what it was. And if you don't have a plan and you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And sometimes it may not be the right road. So we can provide the market intelligence with our data analysis teams to help you figure out exactly where is the best market for your product. And then we can help deliver the services and help you create that export strategy. The third area is business matchmaking. And under business matchmaking, William mentioned that we have a USA pavilion at a lot of these big global industry trade shows. And so with that, you'd need to get registered as a client of ours, get vetted to participate. A couple of big ones are like SHOT Show, Paris Air Show, Farnborough. There's a big food show, I think, in Dubai that we're in almost every industry. So we're sort of the business matchmaking folks. And then finally, the last area is commercial diplomacy. And that applies when you are bidding on a foreign government tender. So what does that mean? The government of, I don't know, Saudi Arabia has a $35 million RFP or tender for rubber tires for their F-35s, right? So the U.S. Commercial Service can work with the Department of State, Department of Defense, the U.S. Embassy over there to help position the American companies to their best advantage because we want that contract to be won by an American company. So I hope that kind of explains that. We do have a national export strategy. I would encourage you to click the link or scan this QR code. These are the top sectors that the current administration has identified. We have a global diversity export initiative where we work with the Minority Business Development Agency, the Export-Import Bank of America, and the SBA. This is some statistics on why exporting is such a big impact. We have over 1,600 exporters in the state. Most of them are small to mid-sized companies. We have some tools called Trade Stats Express. You can click this link here and research a lot of different things on your own if you like. And then finally, the Rural American Intelligence Service for Exporters, what's called our Rural Export Center. They are able to provide a lot of the data analysis, the background checks that William was talking about, can do a lot of amazing things. They have the access to the databases to help you pinpoint exactly what are the top 3 countries in the world for your product. And I'm sort of like a account manager, general practitioner for our small to mid-sized businesses. So my job every day is to help create and retain jobs here in the state by helping our small to mid-sized companies export their products. Lots of things on the Rural Export Center website. We have this export solutions roadmap. So if some of you are brand new to exporting, this is the last thing I'll go over. If some of you are new to exporting and you're not export ready, click this export solutions roadmap on trade.gov. There are 2 doors to go through. One question says, are you new to exporting? Click that and it will walk you through the series of things that you need to know and prepare for. The second door on there says, are you an existing exporter? And then that takes you down other things. So other opportunities. So do you, like William mentioned, do you need an export control? Do you need a license? You know, what do you need to know? What is it that you don't know that could, you know, bite you? So we are working very hard to make sure you have everything that you need. Rudy has my contact information. So does Heidi. What I like to do with a client is to have a quick conversation and find out where are they, maybe 5-10 minutes, where are they in their export journey? And then if they are export ready and they're ready for our services, then I set up a 1-hour client orientation call, and we go through what we do. I learn more about your business a little bit deeper, and then we can kind of start to put you on the right path to help you start to successfully export in those markets. Rudy, I think that's it.
All right, Richard, thank you so much for covering all that great information. Obviously, the U.S. Commercial Service and is a great organization that can help a lot of exporters, and Richard's a great resource as well. William, once again, thank you for your knowledge and for sharing it with us today. And for the attendees, thank you for being here. Ms. Heidi, if you will throw up the last slide that has the contact information, would really appreciate that. And Ms. Heidi will be sending out some more information probably in the next couple of days. And we will also have this webinar on the YouTube that you can use as a resource from now on.
Okay. Here we go. There we go. There's all Richard's information, and I'll make sure you get that. Here's some other useful resources. This will also, I'll also send you these. And just thank you to our speakers. Yeah, if you have a question and you didn't want to ask today, email me and I know who we can get to help you.
Yeah, Ms. Heidi, do we have a survey today?
Yes, we do. Let me.
Yeah. Yeah, the only way we can know whether we're giving you the kind of information that you're looking for, or we can do something different to be able to help you, is for you to tell us. And so, if you would take just a minute to fill out the survey, would really appreciate it. And Ms. Heidi will throw that up in just a second.
There you go. Do you see it?
It's interactive, so you can click on there and type in there and all that good stuff.
Oh, and while you're doing that, also remember to register for next week's class. You actually have to register for every class that you want to attend. And
Right.
next week we will have Sam Rothschild here. He's the chief strategy officer now for Slim Chickens, and they do franchises all over the place, overseas. And he's going to talk about developing customer relationships.
Absolutely. Super
So,
important.
yes, please, if you wouldn't mind, give us a rating. 1 to 5. Thank you.
All right, folks. Well, thank you so much for your time. And as Ms. Heidi said, we still have 3 more classes, and they're gonna be on a weekly basis covering different subjects. If you feel like taking all the remaining 3, that's great. And if you feel like taking just one, sign up for that one and take advantage of the knowledge and wisdom that our speakers have on the various topics that are really important to exporters.
Yes, and I'll send you the recording by Friday at the latest.
Yes, and once again, it will be on YouTube probably in a few days, so that if you ever need it as a resource, you can go back there. In addition to all the other webinars that we've done in the past. So once again, thank you very much for your time, and hope to see you next week. Thank you again.